and welcome to the webinar series 2.0 on Disaster Resilient India 2030. The topic of the day is District Disaster Management Plan, a paradigm shift in disaster risk reduction and resilience. The webinar series 2.0 is organized by Unnat Bharat Abhiyan of Sri Ayyappa College for Women in association with District Management and Rehabilitation Trust, DMRT. A very hearty welcome to you all, and let's begin the session by a silent prayer. Welcome back again. It's my pleasure to announce that Sri Ayyappa College for Women has been selected as the participating institute of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, a flagship program of Minister of Education, Government of India, which aims to take colleges or the classrooms or the students to the villages. Every college is expected to adopt minimum 5 villages and are requested or are instructed to participate in the development of the villages or the village development activities. The students are being part of the village development activities. This is one step ahead of the extension activities that are being currently following in the colleges, and I am sure Professor Suresh will be able to guide us more in the activities of UBA because Sir has been involved in the activities of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. And our webinar series 2.0 is organized under the banner of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and their flagship program of Minister of Education, Government of India. Now, it's my duty to welcome everyone here. My welcome goes to Michael Vedashiromani sir, IAS retired, former Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala, and the Chairman of DMRT. The participants of our webinar series will be very familiar with Michael Vedashiromani sir, who, a fatherly figure to us, is guiding and inspiring and instructing us to lead the program. A very hearty welcome to you, sir. Next, my welcome goes to our principal ma'am, Dr. K.V. Jayashree, who amidst her busy schedule is here with us because ma'am told me that she is having a busy schedule today and may not be able to join us, but it is her, it shows her commitment that she has found time to be here with us. A very hearty welcome to you, ma'am, too. Next, my welcome goes to Professor A. Suresh Kumar, sir, Advisor DDMA, Kanyakumari District, and the Secretary of DMRT, and the Organizing Secretary of the webinar series. Indeed, the backbone of our event. A very hearty welcome to you, Suresh, sir. Next, my welcome goes to Professor Suresh Maria Selvam, who is Independent Community Development Consultant and Adjunct Faculty with the Institution of Higher Education. Sir will be addressing us on building capacity for disaster risk management today. A very hearty welcome to our program once again, sir. Next, my welcome goes to Dr. M. Parivelan, Chairperson and Associate Professor, Center for Statelessness and Refugee Studies, School of Law, Rights and Constitutional Grievance, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. A very hearty welcome to you, sir. It is our fortune to have you here. And my welcome also goes to Mr. P. Subramaniam, Tahsildar, Disaster Management, Revenue Administration, Disaster Management and Mitigation Department, Kanyakumari District. A very hearty welcome to you, sir. My welcome next goes to Dr. K. Meena, IQAC Coordinator of Sri Ayyappa College for Women, whose support and inspiration is indeed the guiding spirit behind this program. A very hearty welcome to you, ma'am. And also my welcome goes to all the teachers and all the frontline warriors of disaster management who have associated with us, who have joined us through the Zoom, and also all the participants of the webinar series who have joined us again, who have registered with us again, and who are joining us through the YouTube. A very hearty welcome to you all. Next, let me welcome Dr. Uma Devi, Assistant Professor of Botany, to introduce Sri P. Michael Veda Shiromani, sir, who is chairing the session today and also who will be giving the introductory remarks and the inaugural address. Uma, ma'am, please.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible, ma'am.
A warm good evening to all the honorable dignitaries who are the part of the second session of this webinar series 2.0, organized by Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Sri Ayyappa College for Women, in association with Disaster Management and Rehabilitation Trust, Nagarkoil. On this pleasant and colorful evening of webinar series on Disaster Resilient India 2030, it's my privilege and honor to introduce the chair of this session, Mr. P. Michael Veda Shiromani. He is the former Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram. He completed his master's degree in botany at Annamalai University, Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, Business Administration, Exeter University, UK, and joined the Indian Forest Service allotted to the Tamil Nadu cadre in 1980. Subsequently, joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1982. He worked as sub-collector and later as a collector in eco-fragile districts of Idukki and Wayanad in Kerala. He also served as Director, Tribal Welfare, and later as the Dairy Development Commissioner of Kerala. He was one of the pioneers in introducing sericulture in Kerala. He was specially nominated by the state government of Kerala as special officer to rehabilitate the victims of the Lattur earthquake in Hazalgan village. His areas of interest are good governance, right to information, primitive tribals among the tribals of India, cost-effective housing, and also in eco-development issues. He also served in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, as Deputy Director, a member of the High-Powered Committee on Disaster Management constituted by the Government of India, also served as Director in the Ministry of Agriculture in the Natural Disaster Management Division, closely associated with the relief in Bhuj earthquake. He was trained as an expert member of United National Disaster Assessment Coordination Team. He also served with International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. At present, he is serving as Resident Commissioner, Government of Kerala at New Delhi. Respected Michael sir, without you, our webinar series will not be a great success. Only because of your support and guidance, we could make a great success in the first session of this webinar series. We are really honored by your presence, support, and blessings on this occasion in spite of your busy schedule. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uma ma'am. It was a wonderful introduction to the esteemed personality who is among with us. Michael Veda Shiromani, sir, the platform is yours. We would like you to have the inaugural address of our webinar series 2.0.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening to one and all. It's such a great pleasure again to interact with one another because disaster is always a big teacher. Nature is the biggest teacher and disaster also teaches. So every day, I think when we look into the disaster management, I think we learn a lot and we quite a lot to learn. Let me also, especially congratulate, it is like for a chariot, there are two wheels. It is like Suresh and Dr. Savita. I think because of you, the wheel of disaster management training web seminar going on. Thanks to Ayyappa College and thanks for the introduction. Luckily, we have got today experts, Professor Suresh Maria Selvam and Dr. Parivelan, both from very reputed institutions who have got hands-on experience. That is most important. Disaster management, it is not the degree, it is how hands-on experience. But today, with all said and done, when we started disaster mitigation sometimes long time back. There are very, very few experts. People know about drought, flood, that's all. That's all. Tsunami, we just referred the dictionary and knew what is tsunami. So, but today, if you look into the country, I think in terms of preparedness, there has been many things that has been done. The NDMA Act has come, NDMA authority has come. Today, I think when we are amidst COVID, I think it is because of the Act, and the Act is what I think empowered all the people. So that being so, now I think it's good that we are not just taking one sessions and finishing it off and then giving a certificate, because how we are going to have more field experience, how you are exposed, how you are sensitive, how you are upgrading yourself. That's what, because it is something like incremental development and growth is what disaster management means. Now coming to particularly the seminar, and particularly when we thought about it, why this district disaster management plan? Because Indian administrations, when we look into the governance of India, I think we all say that I think the district administration, the district collector is very important, because this is one of the a gift from the, I think, Britishers, because wherever they ruled, they followed this district administration system. That seems to be even today, though they have jumped over to counties and all Panchayat Raj system, but we still hold on to the district administration because it seems much more to be done. So district is an administrative unit for all practical purposes. And even a common man understands what is the district collector means, what is his powers, etc. comparative. He feels he is the government and he is the decision maker. Now, to put it very briefly, I think we normally in the North India, we call it, the district collector is called what you call district magistrate. But I would say the explanations, what is the DM stands for? Normally people use the abbreviations, the DM. I would say, I think district collector is a disaster manager. I think he is the person to manage, because it is all depends upon how enthusiastic he is, how proactive he is, how much he has done a plan. According to that only, the disaster can be managed. Disaster management is nothing but a reflection of a good governance. If a country has got a good governance, then I think disaster management will be easier. The same applicable to the district collector also. If the Kanyakumari district administration is good, then disaster management during any of the crisis will be good. If the district administration is not efficient, then the people will suffer a lot. So it is nothing but a governance issue, because disaster is something like an emergency situation. It's like a war-like situation. You don't have got time. You don't have got time to respond. But then how much you have done, how much your preparedness, how you anticipate, that's what it matters, the disaster management. So for us, I think the district is the most important. That's what some or other we thought there's a district disaster management plan. Earlier, I think when you look into, there was not much district disaster management. There should be drought management plan, there should be flood management plan, etc. I think Mr. Subramaniam, who is coming from the revenue department, because revenue department is one of the key department who is in general available for anything and everything. They are something like, I think Tamil, if I say, Virindilangam Sangapalahe, revenue department is one. You ask them to do anything, they say, can you go to the moon? They will say, yes, sir, we will go. So that sort of capability is the revenue department, which has got that capability, got to conduct election, to disaster management, for the VIP movement, everything by and large, they are the coordinating departments. That being so we have to think of a disaster management plan. So this is something we have thought about little later, and as the high-powered committee recommendation is to prepare a district disaster management plan. Why prepare a plan? It is something always said, if you have not planned, if you have failed to plan, then you are planned to fail. So if you have not done where you want to go, then if you have not thought about it, then you don't know what you are going to do. So it's always planning is the most important, because planning will envisage, will encourage us, and will equip us to make use of these resources in the most effective way. I would say disaster is something like a war-like situations. It is really a war-like situations, because you've got a resource constraint, you've got a time constraint, you've got maybe if it happens, a disaster comes, strikes in the night, then your problem is much more complex. So that is something like a war-like situation. But in a war-like situation, but then how much the war is won, not in the war. The war is already won or done. provided you do the exercise. Like, for example, now in 1962, what happened to China and India and what happened to us, we know. I think Nehruji believed, I think his fellow, the neighbors will be very friendly, but they did not prove so. But today, when we are having this problem with China, I think we know we are comparatively more equipped, much comparatively well equipped. Comparatively, our operational strategic plans are better. So this planning is the most important thing. And India is to a plans, something like we call it planning commission, planning board. This is something very important part of the administration's planning board, planning commission. Government of India has got a planning commissions. Now we call it Niti Aayog. Now, similarly, in state government also, we have got a what we call planning board. In all the states, we have got the planning board or similar organization so that we know what the resources, etc. Now, disaster management has become very, very, very important part of the governance or part of the district administration, because invariably we are a country with lot of resource constraints. We do have got a natural endowments, but then we do have got a constraints because the demand is high and the supply is less. But in terms of that's what we have got a problem. So this adds to the vulnerability. Who is going to be more affected in any disaster is the people who are driven or who are marginalized, was thrown to the vulnerable areas. Maybe in the coastal areas, maybe in the flood prone areas, maybe in the hilly areas, which are not very safe. So that's a problem. So that can be done not on a disaster management time. It has to be done much earlier, Now, for example, I think Kanyakumari District, though we are sitting in Kanyakumari District, so we are not like other experts who are from other districts, but we do. Every district has got a plan to be prepared. Now, if you take the Kanyakumari District, we are one of those multi-disaster prone districts. Most of the districts in India are multi-disaster prone. Invariably, you've got a drought. Invariably, you've got a flood. Invariably, I think you will have also, in terms of cyclone. Now, disaster has also made it more updated. And technologically also it is updated and taken us by surprise. I think periodically, regularly, I think we are getting now disasters. Like, for example, Kerala, which I think otherwise is a God's own country. I think 2018 we had a flood, unprecedented flood. 2019 we have flood. Now 2020 also we have got, I think, enough of landslides and all. The same is applicable to many other parts, may not be in that large scale. And this is amidst Corona. I know all our attentions, all our focus is on Corona. We all know how the Corona has made us most unsocial. You cannot, because man is always called as a social animal, but that man's social animal is being made unsocial because you're not supposed to contact somebody, you're not supposed to open your mouth, you're supposed to take care of yourself. So this is the thing. Now, coming to the briefly, of course, we do have got an experts who are available, who has got hands-on experience both nationally and internationally. I'll just touch upon that. What is that the disaster management plan should know? The disaster management plan will, in general, will assess what is your natural endowments, what are your problems, and what are the solutions which are available, both in terms of short-term and long-term. Because any disaster management plan should be like zero depth. Other things we cannot do it and all. You cannot stop the water. You cannot stop the rain. But what you can do, shift the people from the vulnerable area to a safer area. So saving lives is the most important component. Today is the World First Aid Day. I think thanks to Dr. Suresh for reminding me, because IFRC is the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, where I've had an opportunity to work. They started the first aid because finally it is the first responder. The first aid what you're given is going to safeguard the children, safeguard the safety of the individual. Like it's always said, like Dr. Kurian, I just wanted to say, the initial 6 months of the care you are going to give it to the calf because he's a milkman. So I want to say the initial 6 months, the care you are going to take care of your calf is going to take care of your milk supply. Similarly, we all know the initial 1 year of the child is the most important. The initial 1 year, how you are able to boost the child, how you are able to take care of the health, how is the immunizations you are doing, how is you are going to the boosting the immunity of the child will decide about the healthy conditions of the child throughout. So this sort of planning is the most important thing. And in our country, I think, as I said, we are Kanyakumari district has got one of the most vulnerable thing because you've got around 68 kilometers of coastal area, and periodically we have suffered one after another cyclones. We have got also suffered the tsunami, and also we had occasionally faced floods in a very bad shape, and also drought. Drought, of course, in not a very big way, but the drought is something which we have to be cautious, because your water is the most important thing. Neerindi amayadu ulagam. That's what the water is. The everything in life. If you have got a good water resources and you have got a good biological ecosystem, I think you are safe. People will not suffer, and I think suffer due to shortage of water, etc. Now coming to Kanyakumari districts, I think that the vulnerability is predominantly like what I said it. It's something drought we have to remember, something flood we have to, and also the cyclone and also maybe the sea erosions. Very periodically, I think the 44 coastal villages are very, very vulnerable to the, I think, sea erosion. So we need to protect it and all. We need to plan it during the off season. Now, drought and flood, what's nothing but a water management. In excess is flood, the shortage is drought. How you are going to manage? And Kanyakumari district, like for example, the Kanjipuram district is also, I can say, it's a district with lot of lakes, lot of ponds with a beautiful water connecting system, with a nice irrigation system. But are we managing? Are we equipping? Are we, I think, safeguarded? That is the question mark we have to ask to ourselves. Because disaster management plan means how your resources you are managing it for betterment. I think, to my memory, I think many of you from this district would say that the pond in which you took bath when you were a child, I am very sure, I think today you will not be able to enter into that pond or that lake or that river to take bath. Is what is the reality. I'll be happy if I'm disproved. Somebody can say, no, sir, in my village, that pond is still, we are using it for taking bath. I will be so happy, because that's what is expected. Now, in this district disaster management plan, what we need to is, we should know the resources, we should know the availability. And now, for example, all the equipments may not be readily available for at all point of time, but the district administration should know what all the equipments are needed and where it is available at the time of need. You cannot keep it, because India is not that rich country like the Norwegian countries or the Scandinavian countries to keep all the resources with you. You need to, know where the resources are available, at what distance of time. I think I'll be able to take it at all. So this is what is the preparation of plan, and then the fund should be invariably, I think we should do many things which should not create it or trigger a disaster. Because what I served in Idiki, I think we know Pettimudi what has happened. We have sacrificed 66 people. Wayanad is another hilly district. Any hill district is prone for landslides and all, right? 2-3 days you have got excess rain, and because now raining pattern is also changed. Formerly we used to Madathirukku Mundu Mari, I think Mummari and so on. But I think today that's not the case. I think the within 3 days you get the entire monsoon, or the monsoon has been reduced. So that is also behaving in a very, very big way. I think depressions are coming. I think more depression in nature than human depressions. So it all gets reflected in all. Our rivers are not lively. Rivers are nothing but a nice, beautiful natural system of drainages, which has to be looked into. We'll neglect it and all. If you neglect it, now, for example, I think we know Banaras. It is from our Prime Minister's district. I don't think we are able to enter into that Banaras, though it's the most religious place, I think, in terms of cleanliness. Ganga water. I think because still we are putting our sewerages into our holy rivers and all. So I think these are all the natural resources in which we have to take care of and all. And I just wanted to caution, particularly I think when we remember the district disaster management plan, now still there is a big blasting of, I think, what we call rock quarrying. Quarrying is one of the most dangerous things because we have, as a prop, I think many people are familiar. I think there are certain what you call irreparable damages which we have done in this district. One is I would say that the introduction of rubber in the catchment areas. In the non-catchment areas, if you do know, no problem, like what Kerala did it, but not in the catchment areas of Pechimparai, Perijani. I think we have done what you call rubber introductions, and we are today paying the problem. Otherwise, Kanyakumari District is a district with surplus water. But today that's not the case, because the catchment areas, which is the something like the spring, I think we have just affected it. So this is one part, because then leads to soil erosion. That's a lot of things and all. The another one, neglect, as I want to remind, is about the natures. The gift is what, that's the black palm tree, the Panay. Then I think we all drink a Panay Marame, then it lists as a Kalpadaru. But today, I think because we have neglected in terms of that tree, not only neglected, we have not done any research. Unfortunately, like for a coconut, you have done some research, but the same research we should have done it in black palm. Unfortunately, India, we have not done it at all. That's a problem. So if you have done some research, I think I would just wanted to, because the height of the black palm tree could have been reduced, I think still it would have been a very economic crop, and it's a livelihood crop. So many of the important resources we are neglecting, and we are just coming into something like a monocrop, monosystem, etc. This is not going to sustain. So for example, I would say these two systems, the introduction of rubber is not a very healthy environmental system we have done. We have done a great damage, but at that time, when they introduced the earth rubber corporations, possibly people didn't understand, and that led to a problem. Now, neglect of palm trees is another major curse which we have done it and all, because black palm tree, like a bamboo is like panacea. I would say black palm tree is also a panacea for disaster mitigations and management. To come to the last, I want to say that I think the district disaster management plan should exactly say what is your problem, what is the district problem, what all resources we have got, what resources we lack, and these resources, how we are going to do it. It's all very common sense. There are time-bound common sense activities, like for example, before the monsoon, you drain it and all. You clean the draining, you desilt the rivers, you desilt the ponds, etc. If it is regularly done, which was done earlier by the people themselves, but today it is not done, the government has taken over. Government goes through its auction system, tender system, corruption system and all, and it is a neglect and litigations. So finally, I think at one point of time, no action happens, but for distributing money, because distributing money is the easiest way of getting into corruptions, and it will not have any effect. Unfortunate, but that's what's happening in Tendo. When I was in District Collector Wayanad, I said no distribution of water in a tanker lorry, not at all. It is not my dictation. I called the Panchayat people and said, this is what we will do it, but we will ensure that there is no water shortage, etc. So we should know our resources, then we should safeguard the people. I think nature, I think finally in the coronavirus period, I think we all learn what is that. We have to respect nature, and nature shows signs. Nature gives lessons. I think we should learn it. A good disaster management plan will finally equip the people of the district in a much better way to face disaster. It is not disaster-free country is possible. No, disaster will be there. But how you are going to mitigate disaster, that is possible through a plan. I think if you have got an effective disaster management plan, and it's a vibrant document. But when I look into the website, but today I think even by 2017 document is what is reflected in the website, is not a good healthy system at all. That means the administration of Kanyakumari is not prepared or not serious about disaster, because disaster management is not reactive, it is a proactive. You have to take in advance action. You have to be proactive. You have to anticipate the problem and do it. And if you have not done your exercise, then I think we will badly manage it and all. That I think the district administration, the department should take care of, because district disaster management plan, there's a committee. The committee has to look into. The committee has to look into, and the committee is responsible. I think I would say possibly one of our recommendations in seminar should be, I think the district administration should, I think, prepare the district disaster management plan. You cannot pay high in this technological world. I think the message of you cannot be backward. You have to be upfront at all. I think Mr. Subramanian will take the message, and I think I should be able to communicate to the collector and say, I think this is what is one of the recommendations has done. I stop here. If you allow me, I will speak a lot. So thank you very much for this. I think this is not applicable to here itself. It's applicable to all the district disaster management. All the districts should have a disaster management plan. Just to show you a copy, this is the book we brought it from the Masuri IAS Academy, which was sent to all the district collectors. This has got a special topic, how to prepare a district disaster management plan. I think it is not the district administration's responsibility alone. It's for individual responsibility. I would say if the district disaster management plan is not there, at the end of the right to information, I think the youth, the students, the triggering teachers should ask the district administration or RTI, why you have not prepared a district disaster management plan, updated yourself. That is a question. If you ask the question, answer will come, solution will come. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think I look forward. I also happy to participate in this series of seminars, and thanks to bringing a lot of experts from different fields. Thanks to Suresh and Savita, and also support from both the institutions. God bless you all. Thank you very much. I've taken a little more time because disaster is always a fascinating subject. So thank you very much. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You have touched the very basic elements or very basic aspects that we have to take care of. And as you told, black palm tree is a panacea for the district disaster management. And people should contribute to the best practices. As you mentioned, once it was the people in the village, they used to clean the pond, but now that habit is we have forgotten the habit, and I think we should bring it back again. And the projects like Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, through Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Government of India is urging the students to be a part of the desilting ponds and the water management, and also to adapt the best practices in energy management, etc. And let us hope that the projects like Unnat Bharat Abhiyan will bring in changes among the common public, because not only the government, but also if the public is also responsible for the sustainable development practices. Thank you so much, sir, for reminding us again all this. Thank you so much for setting the tempo of the program too. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. P. Subramaniam, Tahsildar, Disaster Management, Revenue Administration, Disaster Management and Mitigation Department of Kanyakumari District, to offer the felicitations. So please.
Good morning, sir. I am Subramanian, Disaster Management Tahsildar from Kanyakumari District. Every year, the district administration is being planned to safeguard the people from the disaster every year. In this regard, the district administration is being prepared district disaster management plan in this year. Already, this district administration have prepared every year management plan to safeguard and preparedness at the time of disaster. Previous year, heavy flood due to northeast monsoon heavy rain, of heavy water from the dam like Pechipara and Perinjani, minimum of 10,000 cusecs of water released from the dam. The riverbed habitations have marooned. Accordingly, the administration have pre-planned to evacuate the people nearby the evacuation shelter to avoid the loss of life or animals. The systematic manner have prepared by our respected district collector, the chairman of the district management authority, have also planned and convened a meeting on 9th September. The state DDMA has also convened, injected some awareness and pre-planned for the forthcoming northeast monsoon. We are ready to safeguard the people from the riverbed and the low-lying area, and also injected our line department officials like fire and safety measures, public works department are also injected to visit the vulnerable area and affected area. People living in the low-lying areas also inspected and way of move to the safer place also identified. Already we have erected a early warning system in the coastal hamlets. because the southwest monsoon and rough sea enter into the coastal habitations. Most number of the people have affected regularly. In this regard, all the precautionary measures have been taken. So our coordinator Suresh Kumar also very helpful to coordinate with the prepare a plan for district management committee. So I have received many points from our IS sir Michael Vedamani sir introduction and speech for capturing many ideas for the time of taking action for disaster. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It's really a blessed thing to have a representative from the government. You are working உங்க ஆபீஸ் பார்த்தாலே தெரியும். Now even on the second Saturday நீங்க ஆபீஸ்ல இருந்து வேலை பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கீங்க. Thank you so much. உங்க busy schedule இடையில எங்களோட வெபினாரோட ஒரு பார்ட்டா நீங்க வந்தீங்க. Thank you so much. And
one more thing. Nowadays the worldwide like this pandemic of COVID, the peak period more nowadays so far 11,082 people have affected.
Suresh sir, can you please stop the screen sharing? Sir, நீங்க continue பண்ணுங்க sir.
Hello, the COVID-19 as of now 11,082 COVID positive patients have been identified and more than 10,000 people have recovered by the medical team given essential treatment. And to district administration have essential effort with the medical team to prevent the highly spread of COVID positive to the people and given awareness to the various low-lying area, vulnerable areas and aged persons. It is also one tough task worldwide during the pandemic of COVID-19 also. It is like one disaster. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. நன்றி சார். எங்க காலேஜ் கூட ஸ்ரீ ஐயப்பா காலேஜ் ஃபார் விமன் வந்து குவாரண்டைன் சென்டரா இருந்துச்சு. இப்பதான் அட்மிஷன் ஆரம்பிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் அதை ஸ்டாப் பண்ணீங்க. So we know நாங்க பாத்துட்டு இருக்கோம்.
குவாரண்டைன் சென்டர்.
ஆமா, குவாரண்டைன் சென்டரா இருந்துச்சு. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We expect your participation in our webinar series. இன்னும் வரக்கூடிய நாட்கள்ல எங்களோட வெபினார்ல நீங்களும் கலந்து கொள்ளணும் அப்படின்னு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம். Thank you so much. Now, thank you, sir. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Sri A. Suresh Kumar, Advisor DDMA, Kanyakumari District, and also the Organizing Secretary of our webinar series, to present the District Disaster Management Plan, to have his thematic presentation on District Disaster Management Plan. So please, the platform is yours.
Most respected Chairman, the driving force behind this webinar series 2.0 on the theme of Disaster Risk Resilient India 2030. Unnat Bharat Abhiyan of Sri Ayyappa College and Disaster Management and Rehabilitation Trust, Nagarkoil, conducted series of webinar during last phase, 5 series. That was quite successful. Accordingly, at the instruction of our chairman, we have planned for the second series of webinar series. Today, our chairman sir already given preview of the District Disaster Management Plan, how it is supportive to the community. Sir has vast experience and wide knowledge and is an authority in disaster management in India. He brought international expertise to India and now country is prepared to face any challenges. Our next driving force is Professor N. Vinod Menon sir, founder member of National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, Government of India, New Delhi. He was with us throughout the program and today also he will be joining us for the closing remarks. For his preoccupied position, he is not with us at present. but he used to support and guide and coordinate us for this program. Our Dr. K.M. Parivalan sir, my good friend, he is a field practitioner, an academician, policy maker, and he specially worked for community. He is the man known for community. He was here in Kanyakumari District some time back to conduct a lot of studies. This is one of the major institutions who supported us during post-tsunami. I know Dr. Neela Tabir, who was with us for 2-3 months. And our great inspiration, Professor Suresh Mariaselam sir, he is the personality who connects all the experts to this webinar series. And Mr. Subramaniam, Tahsildar, Disaster Management, Kanyakumari District Emergency Operations Center, and our professor, Dr. Meena Madam, Principal Dr. K.V. Jayashree. To my surprise, I take this opportunity to present that Mr. Subramaniam, Tahsildar, and myself were students to Dr. Meena Madam. Once again, I reiterate. So with this, I just touch few points on disaster management plan. Experts are here. The District Disaster Management Act 2005 enacted on 23rd December 2005. Act provides establishments like NDMA, National Level Disaster Management Authorities, SDMA, State Disaster Management Authority, and DDMA, District Disaster Management Authority. The Act provides for constitution of Disaster Response Fund and Disaster Mitigation Fund at national, state, and district level. Establishment of NIDM, National Institute of Disaster Management, and the NDRF, National Disaster Response Force. They are vital component support system to India. Provides penalties for obstruction, false claims, misappropriation. These are all given in the Act. Accordingly, the District Disaster Management Authority, as our chairman said, District Collector is the chairperson for Disaster Management Authority in the respective districts. The elected representative he will be the co-chairperson. The standard operating procedures, SP, CMO, and 2 other district level officials will be nominated by the state government. The state government to appoint an officer not below the rank of additional collector to be the CEO of District Disaster Management Authority. And their responsibilities are fixed as per section 30 of DM Acts. So this is the District Disaster Management Authority under the chairmanship of District Collector. Next, District Panchayat President as a co-chairperson, and District Revenue Officer will be the Chief Executive Officer as a ex officio. Under them, Superintendent of Police, Joint Director of Health Services, Project Director, DRDA, and the PA General is the liaison officer who coordinate the line department with the DDMA. In the year 2015, then District Collector and Disaster Management expert, he wanted to have Disaster Management Authority in Kanyakumari District. Accordingly, the office procedures were set. Coming to the Kanyakumari District, the Kanyakumari District is, as our chairman said, it is a eco-fragile district. The area of square feet 1,672. The temperature is maintained normal 30 to 32, and the actual temperature also maintained from 30 to 33. The population-wise, when we look into, the very major strength is, in many districts, the female populations are less. Here we are very strong and proud to say the female population in Kanyakumari District is more. And the Kanyakumari District originally part of erstwhile Travancore, Cochin state. Now, it is with the Tamil Nadu government from 1/11/1956, surrounded by north, majestic hills, this Western Ghats, and east, Tirunelveli district, Bay of Bengal, and west it is Kerala state, south Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea. From the very presence of the borders, Kanyakumari district should be always under preparedness, 24/7. the main occupation is agriculture and fishing, have many acclaimed tourist spots attracting both national and international tourism. The highest literacy rate next to Kottayam district of Kerala. We are the second district in India to declare ourselves as a literal district. Most urbanized setting is the major issue, and most of the big villagers move to municipal location and corporation limits. And urban flooding became a big challenge during monsoon. Gets rain for 6 months. That is our strength, and we have to work for it. We have to restore and establish a well preparedness. Have stretch of 62 kilometers coastal belt, as our chairman said. And our strength is 1/3 of area is covered by forest. After Ogi cyclone 2017, this has to be relooked, and tree planting and replanting of trees we are focusing. And coastal belt, we have started bioshielding also. The district administration has taken a very good initiative to implement all these things. And rivers, perennial rivers, Tamrabarani, Padayar, Valliyar, Parlayar and Kodayar, these are all the rivers giving water system. It make greenery. And there are major dams, Pechipare, Perinjani, Chittar 1, 2, Poigai and Mambadathuraya. These dams are managed well. That's why we could save many lives. The major disasters we have experienced in past: flood 92, 2010, 2015. In the 2015 plan, when we documented it, flood will be once in 5 years. But now the flood we experience every year almost. In 2016 flood as well as drought we experienced. This Ogi cyclone given major lesson to Kanyakumari District administration as well as the public to be prepared. Tsunami 2004 really devastated the entire coastal habitation of 42 coastal habitation of Kanyakumari District. And that local disaster, sea erosion, is the ongoing issue in our district. And here, the major point is whenever the rainfall is more than 2000 mm, that particular year we experience flood. 2015 as well as 1992, this period we experienced 2010, we experienced 2000 plus rainfall. That period we experienced flood. And 2018 also Kerala flood. At that time, we also experienced here flood. And the rainfall data we have analyzed in the district disaster management plan, and the last 24 years rainfall that we have analyzed in the district plan. The critical infrastructure, this critical infrastructure, the district disaster management plan identified is Padmanabhapuram Palace of more than 250-year-old building, Pechipare Dam, more than 100-year-old, and Vivekananda Rock Memorial. During tsunami, 750 tourists were stranded. And subsequently, Kanyakumari Township, UNDP and the NSC, National Safety Council, prepared a plan. We conducted a mock drill, how to immediately evacuate the people when there is a warning from IMD. So 2015 plan was an eye-opener, and 2016 we have updated the plan, and the major identification is HRVC, hazard, risk, vulnerability we have identified with the support of the middle level officers. First, we have conducted training program for the stakeholders, that is district officials, and subsequently we conducted for the middle level officials. They have given the low-lying area and that area that will affect during flood, monsoon, sea erosion, that in one of the training program, they themselves prepared a hazard risk vulnerability map and presented to the DDMP preparedness committee, so that we could work for it. As our chairman said that we have to identify the problem. And then we have taken a lot of measures. Every year, the standard operating procedure and the standard operating system to release the water in a paced manner so that the people who are living in the low-lying area will not get affected. So there were 77 low-lying areas and 15. Now it is reduced to 62. That means the district administration is keen on working for safeguarding the people. Now, the success of the plan is during 92, there were deaths, but 2010, 15, the death rate is almost nil. That is because of this efficient disaster management plan. Next, this is the district disaster EOC, Emergency Operations Center. It was constructed by UNDP and presented to district administration to observe 24/7. The toll-free number is given across the state. It is given. So, like that, this district emergency operations center is highly supportive for during emergencies. So, next, as our Tahsildar Mr. Subramaniam said, disaster management. We have established 3 sirens in highly vulnerable area, Vilavankodu and Kalkulam Taluk. So this message will reach for another 4 kilometers. The people who are in the 4 kilometers will get the noise so that they can go to the safe zone area. And in this seashore area, there are 33 locations identified, and the early warning system is implemented under CDRRP project. So this system is highly helpful to the coastal habitation. And after preparing the plan, we take the dissemination of plan is very important. Accordingly, we have conducted a lot of training with the support of ATI Chennai, and the district level we conducted a lot of training programs for the officials and the education institutions. Standard operating procedures. The standard operating procedure is the major component of a disaster management plan. Accordingly, for each stakeholders, their roles and responsibilities, peacetime, during, before, after the standard operating procedures were given in the plan, 2015 plan itself. So mock drills were conducted in a periodic manner. The fire department of Kanyakumari District is really doing wonderful service at the time of disasters. They were in the front line in safeguarding the people from any eventuality. And this 2018 plan, as per the instruction of CRA, that Sendai framework was included in the district disaster management plan. And 2019 also it is followed up, and many new ideas were brought. The very focus of this webinar is Disaster Resilient India 2030 is, there were 7 targets set by the international community, 193 countries assembled in Sendai. They adopted disaster mortality rate, 0 death rate, number of affected people reducing, and economic loss we have to reduce, infrastructure damage. So for these key area, the district disaster management focused, and many positive changes we brought in the community. So this is the contact number. The 1070 is the state level SDMA number, and here it is DDMA number. And drought, we experienced 2016, there were drought, and drinking water became a problem. For all these issues, the district administration worked for. And we have identified major disasters and minor disasters in 2017 plan. And man-made disaster. Man-made disaster, getting fire and accidents, these things are very difficult issue. The fire and rescue department and health department and first aid, Indian Red Cross Society and humanitarian organizations are working for it. And this is the, silt removal. That is very important. The preparedness measures, that also done. And SDMA state level, DDMA coordinate with SDMA for any issues. The plans were prepared, disseminated to the village level SAG, community-based organization, education institution. The messages were taken. As our Tahsildar sir said, that the COVID work became a major challenge for Kanyakumari District Disaster Management Authority, and they are working well. Because of that, the caseload is reduced, and death is reduced, and the total positive cases and many people they discharged from the hospital, and 24/7. Yesterday I had been to EOC and they working hard to support the community from coming out of these issues. As our chairman said, today is the World First Aid Day, that many first aid programs were organized, and we again at this juncture, as the point suggested by our chairman and today's distinguished panelists will be giving a lot of ideas how to update 2020-21 plan. Gujarat is in the front line. 2021 state disaster management plan they have released, like that the Kanyakumari District Administration, with all your support and expertise, the DDMP will be one of the best in the country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suresh sir. As usual, you had all the facts at your fingertips, and it was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. And now, let me welcome Ms. Anjana S. to introduce Professor Suresh Mariaselvam, Anjana of Research Center of English. Anjana, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm profusely overjoyed to take this opportunity in introducing our eminent speaker, Professor Suresh Mariaselvam sir. He is the independent community development consultant and adjunct faculty with institutions of higher education. Starting his career as a software analyst, he has become a well-renowned person with more than 30 years of industrial and educational experience in the field of disaster management. His service extends to various national as well as international, governmental and non-governmental agencies like WHO, UNICEF, United Nations Development Programme, to name a few. He played a key role in strategic management of public health in India by introducing computerized management health information system for health and family welfare, which is still in practice. He contributed the best service in health and relief rehabilitation and reconstructive activities for Orissa super cyclone, Bhuj earthquake, Asian tsunami, cyclone and Oki and Chennai floods. He trained all district administrators and NGOs in formation of District Disaster Management Authority in Tamil Nadu. Community-based and child-centric disaster risk reduction into development planning and prepared guidelines and play kits for school safety. He promoted multidisciplinary approach and development management strategies for medical engineering and management scholars. He is also actively working on the projects waste, energy and disaster management, environment, climate change, impact on health and sustainable community development, and also in waste management and social entrepreneurship. We are thankful to him for taking the time out of his busy schedule to be a part of this webinar. Now I request Professor Suresh Mariaselvam sir to start his session on building capacity for disaster risk management and share his valuable insight in the topic. The platform is yours. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm not taking much time because Dr. Parivalan is having the main focus of preparing the district disaster management plan. That's his cup of tea. So in the context of today's seminar, for the webinar, Suresh Kumar sir and myself were talking. So it's divided as institutional framework at the district level, and the main focus is on preparing the district disaster management plan. That was the focus. In that context, then there was a request from Suresh Kumar sir. Sir, you can talk about little bit touch. Anyway, in the forthcoming session, we are going to have elaborate on community-based disaster management, mainstreaming of disaster reduction. Everything is going to happen, but I just touch it. So what are the capacities from the community side? As a civil society organization, what they have to do? Because when government is from the state to center, from the center, state, district and panchayat level, when they are having their own responsibilities, community also having some kind of contribution and preparedness from their side. And what are things we have to keep in mind when training the community, when sensitizing or giving the capacity building. So that's what the main focus. I'll take just 15 minutes. And there are a lot of materials available on capacity building of communities. but since it is this forum is linked with the Youth Red Cross, and today is the first aid day, I take the best guidelines given by International Federation of Red Cross and Crescent as the guideline for capacity building. Yeah. So I'll share the screen here. Savita ma'am, could you please give the share screen option, please? Hello, Savita ma'am?
Suresh sir?
Yeah, the share screen option is muted. Could you please open it, please?
Yes. Suresh sir, can you please enable the option?
Yeah, but it says it's muted.
And I'm asking to our organizing secretary, Suresh sir.
Yeah. You are the host, Dr. Savida. You please proceed.
Okay, I'll do sir.
Please enable the screen.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't do that, sir.
Okay.
Can you change? 1 minute.
So today's focus is the national and state level disaster management authority responsibilities and the roles will be shared by Professor Menon, and Dr. Parivalan will talk about the district disaster management authorities' roles and responsibilities and the templates and the components of district disaster management plan preparation.
Sir,
So, yeah.
sir, you yourself can do now. You are the host.
Yeah. Yes. Now it is. Yeah. Thank you. So I will take this guidelines given by International Federation of Red Cross and Crescent as 6 components for building capacity for disaster risk management, and I have bifurcated into each one. And each component, when I taken up and I have added what are things we have done after tsunami.
sir. In particular,
So in the first concept is we are talking about community-based disaster risk management, which is the capacity to be developed among the community. And it's not a new concept. It is it was in practice, and but it's a new nomenclature. Name is given. Why it is required? Because the community is the first and last responders. They are the one who are going to face it, or going to feel the impact, and possess indigenous knowledge, traditional wisdom, which we are going to help them to upgrade their knowledge with the technical knowledge what we are going to provide, and inherent capacities that are required to disaster preparedness. And it leads to social mobilization. So community come together and they get empowered, and ownership is also being focused, and easier identification of vulnerable groups. And it's the characteristics are accountable. We are accountable, and people are accountable for themselves. Focus efforts on enhancing inclusiveness, decentralization. So enhancing inclusiveness and gender issues, especially participation of women and marginalized groups and other vulnerable populations like children, elderly, differently able, and the role of multiple stakeholders and their coordination and their expertise in sensitizing the community. And critical role of media as a shareholder, giving the communication, the right communication at the right time. And sustainability of community-based disaster management requires institutionalization, integration, and primarily at the community. And the PRA is the tool which we use to community. We'll have a separate session exclusively for community-based disaster management. I'll just touch it. What is PRA? PRA is nothing but a community can apprise themselves. They can analyze their own resources, their own strength and weakness, and solve their own development plans. And it is a top-down approach. Sorry, down-to-top approach. Earlier it was from the government, from the top, central, state, district, and panchayat, and the community. Now from community, it goes up. The needs are identified, and the supplies, right supply to the right need are to be identified by the upper levels. And assumes the knowledge and analytical skills of the poor, no matter their education. Everyone will have a role to play. And what are the tools? The tools could be interviews or semi-structured interview or informal conversation with people, standardized open interview with independent responders, focus group discussions, diagrammatic techniques, mapping techniques, ranking techniques, and trend analysis. For example, to make the community to draw their own mapping of their village and identify the resources, and they can use the local materials. These are all you might be knowing about it. Just giving some of the pictures taken from training programs after tsunami. This is in Kattalur and this is in Tiruvallur. And this is in Nagapattinam, where the community has come forward. And they have drawn a wonderful picture of a village near Velankanni. And this is a sea, and using color powders and the locally available material, they have drawn their village. This is called resource mapping. What are the resources in the villages? And next is social mapping. Social mapping consists of what are the social resources like the lands and the ponds and the houses and the roads and everything. So everything has got a legends, and this is called the social mapping. Then vulnerability map is which are the areas that are vulnerable in case of an emergency. First, they have to identify what are the probable hazards that could have an impact on the village. So they should identify which are the low-lying areas, which are the safe areas, which area will be affected immediately. Now, for example, there is a lake is there, it is overflowing, how much area will be affected. So all this vulnerability concept should be identified this map. Next comes the opportunity map. So in case of emergency, safe places where people could be located, and when they are rescued, they could be placed. For example, these are the native areas, these are the high areas, these are the concrete houses, Madi Padiyula, the staircase, and there is a concrete buildings. So these are the opportunity map, and this is a complete map. This is by Sevalaya, Nagapattinam. This is one of. And then we have seasonality calendars, and making the probable hazards on the side and the months this side. So which hazard will have an impact on which month? By giving this kind of pictorial thing and keep it the place at the common place. People always be prepared how to face that particular season and work with the other stakeholders. So second one is strengthening. So the institutional framework, as per the institutional framework, the NDMA, DDMA, SDMA, and the panchayat level officers, when they have their own technical and other support, the functional thing have to be planned by the community. The decision making has to be done by the community by discussing the various vulnerable situation opportunities and the tools available, what the government says, and how we are going to work on it. These geo-specific factors have to be presented, and with the coordination of other stakeholders, the planning should be done. So the DM plan consists of these are the components like physical and social infrastructure or profile of the village, demographics, area, housing profile, resource inventory of village. These things will be explained in detail by Dr. Parivel. Just now, Suresh Kumar sir also presented disaster profile of the village or the district, contact information of the village, and making the people to draw their own various tools and maps and among themselves. The women group, the SHG group, talking about the alternative livelihoods. So formation of team is one of them, like early warning team, search and rescue, evacuation team, management team, first aid team, relief and coordination team, trauma counseling. These are all community members will be in the teams. And as per the disaster management cycle, so the pre-disaster, the teams of risk assessment, mitigation, prevention, preparedness will be done. And during disaster, warning, evacuation, saving people, providing immediate assistance and assessing damage will be during response. And after the normalcy returns, then you can have an analysis of where it happened, how it happened, why it happened, where exactly is the gap. And the reconstruction period, you can think about economic, social recovery, ongoing development things, risk assessments, and early warning, and preparedness, prevention, preparedness, mitigation sectors. And so when the cycle comes up over the next time, that should not have a similar situation. It should be an improvement. We talk about build back better. So during this period, the teams and the stakeholders would sit and prepare the build back better policy. And third one is
So do you have audio for these videos?
yeah, it's not. I'm not getting.
No, sir. You have to before giving the sharing option, you have to give the computer audio, share computer audio option too.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Can be highly effective in bringing about valuable work across organizations, sectors, and levels. Effective DRM requires the ability to work across different organizations, sectors, and levels of government. And so we need to give greater consideration to developing skills for integration and collaboration. Building capacity for mainstreaming DRM can be highly effective in bringing about valuable long-term change. It's also important to build DRM capacities at all levels, from national government to communities, including regional and local government levels, which can often be overlooked.
So, usually what happens when you consider the hazards, as Chairman was talking about, we're talking only about the natural hazards and the man-made hazards. But if you go in depth of the hazards and political, economical, and social and technological hazards, other than that, we have demographic, environmental, legal, ethical. There are so many other underlying factors are there, like vulnerability, unsafe conditions, fragile physical environment, dangerous locations, dangerous buildings, fragile local economy, livelihood at risk, and then vulnerability, underlying causes like poverty is always in all the factors. Poverty is one of the most important underlying cause. Limited access to power structures, limited access to resources, ideologies, economic systems. So these are also from this side hazards, and we have to consider of alleviation of poverty is one of the most important things UPA talks about. We'll touch that on that. So mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction is the most important advice and suggestion given by the government in alleviation of poverty, where the community itself is involved in doing developmental activities as well as prevention, part of the prevention activity. And it refers to the integration of planning, poverty reduction strategy, change deal with the natural hazards, to take natural disaster risk reduction as a matter of development, and to understand the dynamic nature of vulnerability and underlying causes, and to revisit ongoing government schemes and how the government schemes could be part of mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction and include that in the development. And the sectors we have to look into: shelter, water, sanitation, child education, environment, public health, and mitigation. So this is one of the area like livelihood promotion. The self-help groups are sensitized and they are given through using microfinance. They have been given opportunities. Now recently we tied up with solar solution company, where in Madurai a solar powered tailoring unit has been established, and now we are entering into agriculture, animal husbandry, food industry, ordinary Xerox shops and internet shops, all are going to be solar powered centers. Now this is the next process under UBA we are touching on that. It's a tailoring unit, and here women are involved, are trained in construction of toilets, especially they are given mason training. So we're under the UBA and Swachh Bharat plan, women are encouraged to construct the toilets from the village, so that in case of a modification or any kind of repair, so immediately they will be available, rather engaging people from outside. And Kanyakumari is the first district to start with driving. That's one of the most important livelihood option for the women they prefer. And as far as education is concerned, giving a mock drill and introducing now seats, have given games, and they are given guidelines also. Having this school disaster management plan and the map of the school and the labs to be equipped with safety measures like fire extinguisher. And other than that, community level toilets, healthcare, health posts, and using the rainwater harvesting, establishing water reservoirs, training people on waste management, segregation of waste, and using the solar panels, biogas plant. These are some of the areas under UBA. The students should be trained, as well as the student part of their program. When they go to the community, they should train them on these. So, linkage between disaster and development. Development should consider the favorable factors, and the vulnerable areas should not have any kind of plan without doing impact assessment. Example, I'll give you a small example. Now, this is the top one. Look at it. This is the first thing is a village called Lighthouse Kuppam in Poneri. So the Pulicat, what happened? There was a bridge over here. It was washed away. And the only transport was the bullock cart. That was totally cut off. The children could not go for school, and women could not go for work, and the pregnant women, elderly people could not go to the hospital. So there was a big lag behind the development. So when construction plan was given, there is a bird sanctuary is there. So forest department was objecting it because the height was a disturbing factor to the birds. So again, there was a consultation. Then a series of meetings were organized, and then finally they settle at the height, and then where the boats have to go down, and the transport also should happen here. So it took almost 6 months to 1 year, or maybe it's sometime a little more also. But now, see the development, the entire village is connected, and a lot of business activities are going on. The entire village is now prospering. Whereas the other side, if you look at it, this is in Kadlur, where this is maintained by, this is the motor room, this is open oxidation pond, and the wastewater from all the settlements was collected over here, and there is a motor shipped over here. This is maintained by the Indian Red Cross Society in Kadlur. There's a pump kept over here, and the pump was supposed to filter all the solid things, preventing them to enter into the pond. But unfortunately, what happened at some point, people could not understand the importance of it. They started putting bottles and sometimes some hard substance which have affected the motor, and everything started going inside. Because of that, there was a lot of seepage on the banks of that pond, and there was a lot of leakages, and the wastewater was leaking out, and it was getting mixed up with the drinking water pond. It was a little away from there, and so that water could not be used, and they were using coconut fiber to soak inside to make ropes, but their livelihood was stopped. So this is again, it is in a vulnerable place. So a development which is vulnerable to the living standard. So we have to be very careful when we are doing introducing a concept or a strategy or a development. We should have complete study of the situation, environment impact assessment, and then we should interest. It should not be a disturbance to the existing setup community. Next.
Carefully plan and design programs for lasting impact. Capacity building programs need to be designed carefully, giving particular thought to how we can sustain all that's been achieved once a program has come to an end. Too often, programs are squeezed into timelines too short to secure their lasting impact. Ensuring that programs have robust monitoring and evaluation systems that focus on outcomes and impact is also important.
So, we can use this kind of maps to identify what kind of resources we have by using this will give a complete picture of what are the resources we have. See, the inside this is the village circle, and each circle, the size shows you how much utility each resource is connected with the village. And these are the outside from the village. And again, the size gives you an indication how much they are useful for the day-to-day affairs of the village. And here it is, the Venn diagram shows about the institutional relationship with the community. And this one is about the trend analysis. The trend analysis is now see, every 10 years it's been taken. Now see, so many trees were there in 60. Now it has reduced to this much. Now in 1999, there are only 3 trees are there. There are and farmland, so much of farmland, now it is only this much. So this will give how much resource are depleting or increasing, where we are, and how much we are losing or how much we are developing. So a complete pictorial representation gives you a clear picture of our development. Now, Dr. Parival and myself involved in a study in Cyclone Thane. After that, we did a study where we are given an unconditional cash transfer and cash for work support to the community. And I'll just take 1 minute. Now, this is having 6 parameters. One is how much the local governance is equipped with the knowledge. What is the society and economy? What is the level of their economic condition? How much knowledge they got on community disaster reduction training knowledge? And what is the real impact on the village? And how much this relief support was useful for the community. Now look at 3 villages I've taken out of 10, 12 villages. I've taken only 3 villages. Now see, the CBDRR level is very low. It's just 1.2. After 4-point scale, it's just 1.2. Because that you see the impact is a little bit high. Among all 3, this is having highest impact. And the relief materials were very useful for them because you see highest 3.1. Whereas here it is moderate. It is 2.4. So the impact is less and the relief materials were in the moderate. Again, here it is 1.6, it is medium level. Again, it is 2.5. See the impact. So it has got a direct proportionate this thing. So if this is less, then automatically this will be more. Impact will be more. So the community capacity building is very, very important.
Pay attention to the context. It is important to pay attention to the local context when planning capacity building activities so that they are relevant and based on a good understanding of local capacity needs. All programs should be based on thorough capacity needs assessments.
So this is another one which you are all involved. Training providing first aid to the community, train them on making, with the available resources, making their own during rescue. This is one kind of bottles tied up, which could be tied up around the waist. It will help to float the person and extinguishers. Now, this is one small example from Africa, where the community during COVID, using the waste material, they have made hand washing stand. It's all from the waste material. The community youth have designed this, framed this by using the complete waste materials, which children have been trained, and the entire community is following the practice. Now, early warning is concerned, whistles. Earlier they are using whistles and hoisting emergency flag, use of tom-tom, voicing bells, use of public interest system. Nowadays, you got this warning through media, landline, mobile, and this infrastructure of group SMS, group mails, group conference, voice broadcast, these are all things available. It's all, communication is well equipped now, and this is about the market.
আমি অপু এবং মনোজ এখন বরগুনা জেলার অঙ্কুজান পাড়া গ্রামে, যেখানে আশেপাশের 5টি গ্রামের মানুষকে সাথে নিয়ে একটি ঘূর্ণিঝড় মহড়ার আয়োজন করা হয়েছে, যাতে ভবিষ্যতে ঘূর্ণিঝড় মোকাবেলায় এই মানুষগুলো আরো ভালোভাবে প্রস্তুতি নিতে পারে। 1 থেকে 3 নম্বর সতর্ক সংকেতের সময় একটি পতাকা ওড়ানো হয়। এ সময় ঘূর্ণিঝড় সম্পর্কিত রেডিও বার্তা নিয়মিত শুনতে হবে এবং স্থানীয় স্বেচ্ছাসেবী ও দুর্যোগ ব্যবস্থাপনা কমিটির সাথে যোগাযোগ রাখতে হবে। সালাম ভাই ও তার স্ত্রীকে সাথে নিয়ে আমিও যোগ দিয়েছি এমন একটা উঠান বৈঠকে। আচ্ছা, আশ্রয় কেন্দ্রে যাওয়ার সময় কি কি সাবধানতা অবলম্বন করতে হবে?
মা এবং বোনদেরকে লক্ষ্য রাখতে হবে, তারা তাদের চুলগুলো বেঁধে যাবে এবং সালোয়ার কামিজ পরে সতর্কভাবে চলে যাবে।
ট্রেনিং থেকে আমরা শিখছি, আমরা যাওয়ার সময় যে 8 নাম্বার সিঙ্গেল দেবে হেই আমরা আশ্রয় কেন্দ্রে চলে যাবো। আমরা শুকনো খাবার টাবার নিয়ে যাবো, চুল বাইন্ধে যাবো, যেন কোনো গাছে গোছে না পেঁচায়, যেন আমরা মারা না যাই।
মহারাজ শুভ উদ্বোধন ঘোষণা করছি।
এখন মহাবিপদ সংকেত অর্থাৎ 8 থেকে 10 নম্বর সিগন্যাল চলছে। গ্রামবাসী সদল বলে সবকিছু নিয়ে এই আশ্রয় কেন্দ্রে চলে আসছে এখানে আশ্রয় নেবার জন্য।
এই ধরনের পরিস্থিতিতে বাড়িতে থাকা গবাদি পশুকে উঁচু ও নিরাপদ কোনো স্থানে নিয়ে যেতে হবে।
স্বেচ্ছাসেবকদের একটি দল আশ্রয় কেন্দ্রে আসার পথে আহত ব্যক্তিদের উদ্ধার করতে এবং অন্য দলটি তাদের সেবা দিতে ব্যস্ত।
সবশেষে আশ্রয় কেন্দ্রে আসা গ্রামবাসীদের মাঝে ত্রাণ বিতরণের মাধ্যমে শেষ হচ্ছে আমাদের ঘূর্ণিঝড় প্রস্তুতির চূড়ান্ত।
The last one is fostering of.
Number 6, foster ownership. And finally, ensure that those being targeted for capacity building have a clear and significant role in designing and implementing the program. Ownership is built through participation, engaging leaders and winning high-level support, as well as aligning with existing DRM strategies and policies. By carefully implementing these 6 key principles, together we can improve the effectiveness of our efforts to build DRM capacity and increase the resilience of vulnerable communities around the world.
So this is fostering the community.
District.
So this is fostering the ownership. I'll give the last example. This is from Musiri, which was constructed. This is an eco-sun toilet because only 2 months they get water in the river, And rest 10 months, the riverbed is used as an open defecation area. There was diarrheal cases were mounting during September, October, whenever the water started coming, because the riverbed, whenever they get water, they are using for domestics. So an NGO called SCOPE, with the support of Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, they did a study, rightly said, about understanding the development in a vulnerable area. They identify the different kinds of toilets, and they recommended EcoSun toilets, which was a new kind of toilet, which was earlier was used in houses, but they modified according to the current situation, making 2 chambers. And this was introduced as a community toilet for those who do not have toilets in their houses or those who don't have houses. And initially, people were not very happy about it, how to do it and how to make use of it. But later, when they understood, the diarrheal cases came down, the health issues were solved, and people are very happy. And they themselves took the ownership. And when we visited last time, so this was the condition. So the health messages were written on the wall, and people are taking the ownership, and the entire thing was completely covered. And people are given, those who are using for the first time, there was a person was employed to explain them how to make a toilet. So this is ownership. The community takes care of everything. And the compost manure of this toilet is being shared by the community for their agriculture purposes also. So the 6 points what we talked about is the basic capacity building, a focus on holistic disaster risk reduction, strengthen of functional capacity for DRM, work across organizations, carefully plan and design programs for lasting impact, pay attention to the context. Other 6. So under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, this is what we are concentrating: water and sanitation, economic and community development, maternal and child health, supporting the environment, basic education and literacy, disease prevention and treatment, and peace conflict. So if development we are talking about, disaster management and development should go hand in hand. Now, as per the situation, disaster management is going in a different direction, development. Again, that will be having a big gap. So they should have an understanding, mainstreaming of disaster risk protection as well as the development plans should be compatible, so that the activities what we are planning should be department trained to the students, and when they become the members of the community, they can take the values and sustain till the Build Back Better concept. So the 4 things keep in mind: identifying the risk, developing a plan, implement the train, and be a leader in your community. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Professor Suresh. It was a very interesting presentation on capacity building at the village level. And I'm sure both our students and all the stakeholders of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan will be certainly benefited from this, because you have touched that too. You have linked the capacity building for disaster management and also the principles of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. Thank you so much, Suresh sir, and we expect your guidance in the future too in our activities. Thank you so much. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Divyasri, Assistant Professor of Botany, Sri Ayyappa College for Women, to introduce Dr. M. Parivelan. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Respected dignitaries, Principal Madam, dear colleagues, and dear participants, good evening, one and all. It's my privilege to introduce the resource person of next technical session, Dr. K.M. Parivelan sir, to all of you. Dr. K.M. Parivelan, currently serving as the Chairperson and Associate Professor, Center for Statelessness and Refugee Studies, School of Law, Rights and Constitutional Governance, set up in one of the premier institute in India, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Previously, he was part of developing and launching the IFRC TIS online global disaster management program at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He also served at United Nations Development Program, facilitating the post-tsunami recovery process in India and UNHCR facilitating the voluntary repatriation of Sri Lankan refugees. He is very much interested in themes such as access to justice, human rights issues, disaster management, and environmental issues. He is a devoted research guide and a good teacher too. His area of expertise includes law and justice in globalizing world, international humanitarian and human rights laws, disaster and development, etc. He has organized several conferences, seminars, and symposium. He has set up the Center for Statelessness and Refugee Studies at Tata Institute of Social Sciences in collaboration with UN High Commissioner for Refugees since 2016. Sir, today we are very happy and honored to have you here. Now, I would like to invite Dr. K.M. Parivelan sir to handle the section on district disaster management and a paradigm shift in disaster risk and resilience. Sir, please.
Thank you, madam. Before that, we welcome our chief patron, Professor Vinod C. Menon sir, NDMA founder member sir. Hearty welcome.
Thank you.
Namaste, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very happy to be here. Listen to Dr. Parivelan. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and all the organizing team. Thanks for the kind introduction. At the outset, I would like to compliment and thank the organizers, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Shri Ayappa College for Women, and the Disaster Management and Rehabilitation Trust for hosting this very interesting program, which I enjoyed listening so far, and make my brief presentation as well. But at the outset, I would like to thank Professor Vinod Chandra Menon, who has just joined us now, with the former member of NDMA. He has been actually a source of inspiration for all of us when we were working on the ground. When UNDP had set up the Tamil Tsunami Resource Center to facilitate, and the United Nations Team for Recovery Support in the post-tsunami relief, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. And that's a time where the National Disaster Management Act come in, and NDMA was formed, and Professor Vinod Chandra Menon was, as a founding member, visiting a lot of times to Tamil Nadu, or he used to invite us to Delhi when the makeshift office used to be the NDMA for the National Task Force meetings. And this is where our learning process started. I wanted to acknowledge that, before going into that. And secondly, my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Michael Shiromani, sir. When he was heading the Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, 2 or 3 times I had the invitation from the institute to come down and interact with the youth programs you were organizing. I met you. And again, you are a source of inspiration for your simplicity, for your dynamism, which you have been working. And it's good to connect to eminent persons, after a long time. Of course, Professor Menon could have been in the recent time in some programs. And similarly, my heartfelt thanks to Professor Suresh Mariaselvam and Mr. Suresh Kumar as well, for making this connect and joining in this program. Can I have the share screen option, please? I would like to just share a brief PPT as part of the presentation. Professor Suresh Mariaselvam, can you, if you are having the host option, can you do it, or Mr. Suresh Kumar?
Dr. Savida, please.
Okay.
Dr. Savida, please.
No, Mr. Suresh Kumar is the host now, so he can make him the co-host.
So it's not possible from the tab which I am using now. That was the case earlier too. That's why I couldn't do it.
So right now the host is Mr. Suresh Kumar.
So you can make Dr. Parivelan the host.
Yeah, please make him the host so that then he can.
Yes, sir.
I could not. Dr. Savida, you try.
Okay, I'll do so.
Okay, thank you.
You are the host now.
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I would like to, start with the question. The title given to me is, the District Disaster Management Plan and a paradigm shift, risk and resilience. So I have shifted the paradigm shift later with a question mark, essentially asking ourselves a question. Have we really enabled us to done the paradigm shift? Yes, to some extent at the policy level, at the national level, and thinking we have done, but has it really percolated, the paradigm shift? So here are the two key words I'm just keeping, in the beginning as a reference point, both risk and resilience, which we need to, to look at. One, we see that the disasters on the increase, indicating very clearly that the risk is compounding on very many fronts, whether it is the ongoing natural disasters or the human-induced disasters. The risk is compounding because of the fact that the kind of development paradigm we have, that's something very important, because we all seem to be in a kind of mad rush to focus on our GDP, the gross domestic product, other than looking at from a kind of a sustainable development. So therefore, I would call it at the outset, the risk is compounding, whereas our resilience is diminishing. One, the community, whatever the community has its own indigenous knowledge and the traditional practices is compounded and the resilience is diminishing. Whereas our aim is to enhance the resilience at the national level, state level, district level, which we have to look at it. And now we are all living in the times of a pandemic. The COVID-19 is actually teaching us many lessons, on the move, on the go. For the fact that where we prepared for such a massive, biological hazard, and in every sphere it is telling us, whether it is the social, economic, and all these interrelated spheres, it's telling us that are we prepared? And what is happening to the people in the bottom of our pyramid? I'm talking about the socio-economic pyramid, where the fact that it impacted everybody, and it had drastically impacted people who live below the poverty line, and people who are helpless laborers who face the problem of reverse migration. It is here we just, it actually brought to our attention what kind of resilience we have for these kind of people, what kind of facilities we have given, or the lack of it exposed to the helplessness of this reverse migration, where millions of people, resembling something like a partition, victim movement, that we got that kind of a displacement. More than 10 crore people were made to push on their own, and there were no infrastructures or facilities. If we had these kind of labor migrants who were living in various cities and towns and building our economy and our infrastructure, had we given them the right kind of infrastructure in terms of shelter, in terms of access to health and access to livelihood or other related support, probably many of them would have stayed back. Because of that, we could see this reverse migration, and it also showed the kind of socio-economic vulnerability. There are various institutional mechanisms in place, as highlighted by all the preceding speakers, ranging from the formation of National Disaster Management Authority in 2005 to various state disaster management authorities at various pace and various frequencies. I would not call it uniformly. We have formed as a kind of a quasi-federal country. The SDMAs are also kind of quite, ununiform in terms of the way it is operating, whether in paper or in practice, or are they effectively working, or are they just namesake there? Also have to be, we have to do the stock taking. And in a similar reflection, the DDMAs, the District Disaster Management Authorities, it depends on what kind of a state, mechanisms are operating and how the local disaster governance functions. But you also see a lot of inspirational individuals who operate as district collectors, district magistrates, and the elected representatives who make a lot of difference. We will come to that a little later. And then the need for district disaster management plan, precisely as highlighted by the preceding speakers, that we need to have a bottom-up approach. That's something very important, and we can't be sitting and having a national plan from New Delhi or for the state plan from the respective capital. Essentially, the importance of bottom-up approach, where the DDMA has been very precisely highlighted with the organizers. I think that's something very important, and we need to take stock of how these plans are developed and who are the stakeholders and how they are developed from some of our own experiences of a brief time when we worked in the field, particularly with the Tamil Nadu Tsunami Resource Center, and we have created a model plan. I'll briefly share that as well, our experience, and then how this has been mooted. And of course, the importance of the community-based DRR, disaster risk reduction, which is something very important because the community are the first responders, and community, we mean the people cutting across, caste, class, gender, religion, and other social embedded issues which are around, and we need to have that kind of a unity among the people at the local, which is important. That will be the outline. 3 important references I'll be keeping. I'm just flagging it here. One, the CRED, the Center for Research in Epidemiology of Disasters. Their annual reports are something very interesting, where they collate the kind number of disasters and quantum and what kind of impact. I'm just using that as the latest report as a reference. The second, of course, is our own National Disaster Management Plan of 2019. Very fascinating that, I've been tracking all these things. As I mentioned earlier, our days of visiting NDMA and interacting, and we look at the National, Disaster Management Policy, which came up, and now the Disaster Management Plan at the national level is interestingly trying to converge our ongoing DRR efforts, the Paris Agreement touching upon the climate, and also, it touches the sustainable development goals. I think these are 3 important interface. We thought that something important to converge, and let's see what lessons we have. I'm referring. And of course, the third one, very much at the local level, what we have contributed, a model disaster management plan. Our lessons and what we have, imbibed in the local Tamil Nadu Tsunami Resource Center publication, where myself, my colleague, Professor Suresh Mariya Selvam, we were all on the ground and learning some of the things, and then we created a plan. And interestingly, this plan was adopted by the state administration, and we were happy at some time when we all had sort of handed over and moved out to other streams, that the Commissioner for Revenue Administration had posted this for quite some time in their website as a part of their disaster management mitigation. And perhaps this would have been referred definitely by some of the districts. We will see some of them. And of course, as I said, our experiences during the tsunami days, and then of course the Thane cyclone, or the recent, couple of years back, Kanyakumari was hit badly by the Oki cyclone, where we had the opportunity by a local civil society organization based at Madurai called People's Watch had invited us, some of us from across the country, to saying that let's do a people's inquest, go and understand what is the cyclone Oki and how it had impacted. It was an eye-opener for us, going to the ground again after a long time, and then interacting with the people, what kind of impact, how many people were missing. I think this is something very important. Our friend, Mr. Suresh Kumar, had highlighted about the various facets of hazards and vulnerabilities Kanyakumari District has been facing. I wish he had also, used, they should definitely contextualize the cyclonic storms, which are very important. And this one alone had devastated, and I think nearly 680 people went missing. And this was not taken serious cognizance by the national level or the state level. The district, we could see them very helpless, because I'll come to certain factors where deep sea fishing is one of the important livelihoods of the district. If this be so, are we equipped to have our DRR expanded not only the landwards, but also towards the sea? Where are we having adequate communication equipments? Are we having, satellite phone facilities and other things to alert people who go to the sea for more than a month deep inside the sea? So if you are having certain, present way our DRR is connecting, the IMD notification and the district administration will alert people within a span of 24 hours or 48 hours. But what happens to somebody who goes into the sea for more than a week or a fortnight? I think these are some issues which we need to draw certain lessons from. I'll come to that. And similarly, we had from Tata Institute of Social Sciences to go down to Kanyakumari and spend quite a considerable time for conducting a study invited by Government of India to conduct an independent study by TISS on the social impact assessment for the proposed international transshipment container port. So I and my team members, we spent considerable time coming to the district again after a long time, and went around looking at various impacts this could cause in terms of the port in the coastal area, as well as what kind of impact it could cause in the connecting roads and other infrastructures which may come in. And we understand, Kanyakumari is a district which is very distinct, having a very unique, ecology, unique marine resources, unique activities, and even now it's like something similar to Kerala landscape. We could see the nature, the Western Ghats, the Indian Ocean, where it is located. Whether such peaceful environment should be affected by the new projects and new programs or not, that itself became very enigmatic and very big dilemma of looking at our development and how do we preserve nature, environment, and yet address the issues of DRR. I think this is where I want to, a little bit contextualize. After the topic was announced 2-3 days back to me, just in a short notice, I started reflecting by referring all these things. So now quickly go on. Globally and nationally, disasters are on the increase. Looking at the CRID report, in 2019 alone, we had around 396 natural disasters, nearly about 11,700 plus deaths, and nearly about 95 million people being affected. The economic loss alone in the particular year is 103, but when you look at the average in the last 5 or 10 years, it's almost crossing $350 billion globally. Among the burden, Asia suffers the most, according to the CRID report. Nearly 40% of disaster events happen here, 45% of deaths happen here, 75% of the total people affected globally are from the Asian region, being the convergence of hazards and vulnerability. And India in this sphere is affected the most, we all know, and flood has been the deadliest type of disaster in the recent times. That brings into the highlight the need for contextualizing the climate change and climate-induced hydrometeorological hazards which are on the rise, something very important. And moving on, the global disasters, looking at the various continents, Asia, within Asia, you have Indonesia, China, Philippines, India occupy the maximum number of disasters from the global disaster events. And among the various type of events, you will have flood and storm surges, both emanating from climate and meteorological disasters, compared to other types of disasters or on the increase in recent years, as highlighted. We all know the definition of disasters as a serious disruption which impacts the society, economy, environment, quality, causing losses in the human, material, economic, and so on and so forth, which is beyond the coping capacity of the society or the community concerned, from UNISDR, that is United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, and the National Disaster Management Act of 2005. So here the important thing for us to contextualize, of course, is the kind of hazards which are there, the kind of vulnerability, and what kind of capacity we have. These combinations work, and then if you can have it at the national level or the state level or at the district level, or even at the panchayat or the local urban body level, something important that we keep this, what kind of hazards, as it is said, highlighted by the preceding speakers. Sometimes the hazards are not even in our hands, either a cyclone forming or an earthquake occurring. But what makes the difference between a hazard converting into a disaster is a level of preparedness, planning, mitigation, which has been highlighted again by the preceding speakers. Something very important for us to have. The vulnerability mapping is very important. What kind of local capacities, coping capacities, indigenous capacities, traditional practices are very important. And we need to see how other modern science and technology could be used to enhance the local capacity. Broadly classifying the type of hazards, we know water climate related, geological related, chemical, industrial, nuclear, accident related ones, and biological. All are very important and interrelated. There are very many things which one may try to draw. Many examples such as flood and all that. I will not go into some of the details. Our visit from TISS to Nepal within a week to go and make observations and make some interventions, as highlighted on first aid and psychosocial counseling. We had contributed in later certain livelihood programs linking with mainstreaming development and DRR. We could play a role. So these are the disasters, these are the context we all have. In this visual of, again, CRID, for about 100 years, you have a visual where the climate and meteorological or hydrometeorological disasters in the last 2-3 decades are arising, complementing to global warming, where we are debating at the recent Paris conference and other forums today, whether we keep our temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade or is it 2 degrees centigrade, then that percolates to a lot of things in the post-Kyoto, linking up to our commitment on mitigation, what kind of carbon emission, what kind of thing which we are going to have. So again, the debate comes there about what we can emit and what we can control, and then what kind of developmental things we can do, and how do we keep our people from the developmental gains. And this dilemma comes in, and again, how do we bridge is a big challenge. So the genesis of institutional mechanisms in India emerges from the Odisha super cyclone of 1999, Bhuj earthquake of 2001. The Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004 becomes an important watershed in our thinking, even though we had the Panth committee recommendations and study all being kept at the Ministry of Home Affairs. It is the Indian Ocean tsunami which wakes our conscience of our policymakers and role divisions, and yet a national framework was required, and we visualize that. Actually, I'm just stopping my video. I do not know whether my internet connection is stable. And similarly, the institutional mechanism which emerged, the NDMA at the center, union government level, the SDMAs and DDMAs we're talking. Later, Kashmir earthquake, of course, and then Sikkim earthquake, then Uttarakhand floods of 2013, then of course Chennai flood 2017, and the Kerala floods subsequently in the last 2 years, 18 and 19, all gives us a wake-up call. And now the coronavirus, which has come in, and then it's again shaking the world in terms of how are we prepared, how we need to be interconnected, how do we even do the collaboration, not just we have to come to the local district to understand, but even how do we collaborate internationally and we share our resources. Something I would like to highlight, even the importance of international disaster law. Since we talked about IFRC and all that, IFRC has developed also an international disaster law framework, how countries could have their mechanisms synergized with international cooperation, and things like that are very important. I heard a story when NDMA had done a good job. NDRF was very well equipped with various facets of addressing natural calamities and including nuclear and all that. When the Fukushima earthquake happened and subsequently a nuclear meltdown in Japan, we were told that when various delegates and various teams had arrived immediately, including our Indian delegation had gone, NDRF had gone and contributed with something remarkable that India is, not only within the country, but even outside, it's doing a good job, the NDRF. But we were told that when the Swiss team had arrived with their sniff dogs, post-earthquake, you need to save lives. But I believe the Japanese law could allow the humans to enter, but not the animals, and some equipments without prior this thing. So even a well-developed country could not have a system to allow certain things, and then in a disappointed way the Swiss team had to go back because they were there already on the rounds, and then they could respond within 24 hours, but they could not do so because of the law which did not allow. I'm sure we need to reflect our own law at the national level, state level, and the district level. How do we have our governance to allow? And I think this dilemma was very much reflected when Kerala floods was unprecedented, and Kerala a provincial state government wanted to seek aid from international community. I think there was some incongruity happening between what the center wanted to do and the state wanted to pursue. And I think these gaps, we all know what happened. Ultimately, the international aid could not come in. And I'm just skipping some of them and going straight into the DM Act, certain provisions which are very important. The poor among the victims, it highlights the Disaster Management Act. It focuses on risk mitigation, risk reduction measures. It talks about sustainable and safer economic development. It highlights the importance of disaster and development continuum. And it also talks about the provisions for the local governance, the 73rd and 74th Amendment, which empowers the local governance. I think that's something very important. We are talking today how we can have a truly bottom-up approach. So district and below the district, your panchayats, your blocks, and other revenue divisions, what role they have and what role the community could play a role important. Various list of items which are well known, I'm sure, emergency support functions which are all required, ranging from communication, evacuation plan you have, what kind of search and rescue operations you have, medical health, trauma support, what you have, equipment support, helplines, drinking water, electricity, your food, shelter management, your law and order, your debris clearance, your transport and other functions. I remember the post-cyclone which hit somewhere around 2011, and myself and Professor Sureshmariya Selvam were invited by some civil society organizations to conduct an independent study and submit a report to the state government, which was well received by then Home Secretary. It was also mentored or anchored by Mr. Devasahayan, who is very much a prominent civil society member, a retired civil servant at Nagarkoil. He was kind of leading us, and we went and submitted a report. Some interesting lessons we learned is, when you know a big cyclone is hitting 24 hours, 48 hours, or even many days before you are informed, did your district administration keep a standby generators, a standby water storage? Became a big question mark, because after the Thane cyclone hit not just the coastal area but very deep into the agricultural areas of the Kadalur district, what we found is within 4th or 5th day when we went to the field, people were telling us that they did not drink water for several days altogether, and they were just simply starving because of that, because they could not get the water in any of the radius because it had devastated like anything, and many were depending on all the pump sets and overhead tanks, but everything collapsed because of lack of electricity or other impact of cyclone. Generator was seen as a need, a simple water storage by the district administration, which would have gone around and supplied the water to the village. I think these all brings again and again a lesson on preparedness. There is no one single formula, there is no one single framework what you need to do, but I think we need to learn from variety of these lessons and see what can happen locally at a district level and be prepared for it. I think this is something very important when we're talking about that. We all this DDMP where the national level, the Prime Minister heads the body called the NDMA. The state level, the Chief Minister, respective states, they head it, and then the district level, with the colleagues, that it is the district collector, district magistrate, along with the elected representative from the district could be part of it. The DDMA, just keeping the visual from the DM Act. And from the Act from 25 to 34 are, I think, important components which deals with District Disaster Management Authority, which is very important how the DM Act had percolated the roles and responsibilities at every level, national, state, district, and at the district level, how there will be a the district will be the one which will be in the forefront. That will be in the cutting edge level, playing the real role of how you handle any type of disaster. So something very important at the district level, where we have certain provisions. Let us look at it. Yes. Yes.
You can switch on the camera. You can, because your voice getting broken. Your net will be jumping. Yeah.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. We have these structures which are all mentioned already highlighted as well, that even the district rank of an additional collector will be the chief executive officer and above. Similarly, the superintendent of police, the chief medical officer, and other important line department people could be part of the DDMA. It also highlights how it will percolate action, how it will effectively be able to the human resources and other material resources which are required to address all phases of disasters and help in various phases of it, preparedness, the prevention activities, the structural and non-structural activities. These are very well highlighted by the Act has provided the provision. Now the question for us is that how do we imagine, reimagine, revisit, and reinvoke these provisions which are available, which are there around constitutional rights and duties, responsibilities, which are there in the special acts, such as National Disaster Management Act, and it is up to us at the local level to reimagine and to rework all our preparedness, as it has been highlighted. So the core is about having your plan, the National Disaster Management Plan, by bringing in various informations what you may have and bringing a complete plan, because the plan is the one which will work in the peacetime as well as during the emergency or disaster times. So, the booklet which we prepared, I'm just referring some of them. The components which are required in the plan, of course, some of them are highlighted by other speakers as well. You need to have why the need for local planning. That's something very important. And what is the paradigm change we're looking at? I'm re-emphasizing the lessons we learned from Yokohama Declaration or the HIGO Framework for Action or our own National DM Act or the National DM Policy. It is very clearly specified that the paradigm shift we want is to do from reactive response to more of proactive preparedness and mitigation. I think that's something important in an ideal sense, and then it is still an ideational thing. We need to really look at realistically, have we done that paradigm shift? Because whenever we go back and talk, people are having business as usual. Let a disaster strike, then we will see what we can do. I think this mindset has to change anyway. We need to have that as a part of our objective. And various other objectives, why we are doing this district disaster management planning. What are our methodologies of local information and collating all of them, and what method we have is very important. Then, of course, the entire range of issues of our district profile, right from the geographical, physical features, what are the kind of district administrative structures we have, landscape, what kind of climate, land holding pattern, what kind of economic activities are there in that particular district, what are the economic profile, the population is very important, what kind of literacy you have, what kind of a male-female ratio you have, and how much of youth population you have, and it's something very more, demography is very important, infrastructure, your resources, your natural resources, water resources are important, your infrastructures such as your schools, colleges, your hospitals are important, your housing patterns utilities are very important. And then similarly, your hazard vulnerability capacity. So what are the kind of hazards are relevant to your particular area, your district is very important. And what are the vulnerabilities as of now? It could be existing social economic vulnerabilities. It could be the new infrastructural vulnerabilities which may be emerging as a part of development. We have to look at it very carefully. What are the existing capacities and what are the capacity needs which are there? But this combination is something very important. So your hazard into vulnerability is what is equal to your risk or your disasters. Or if you can address it with inversely with your capacity, then your vulnerability and hazard impact would be minimized. So that is something which we need to see, this symmetry, very important. Then what are the roles of various disaster management institutions, national, state, district, including your incident command systems, what you have, and what are the kind of roles each emergency support functions, each line department in your are very important, and the district disaster management teams at the district level or at the local level, panchayat or urban local level, even up to the ward level, something very important. Your mitigation plans, both structural, non-structural, you have to design it, and that is something, an important area. I thought I will just flag it here. I'm sure there are experts there, particularly Professor Chandra Menon could highlight. NDMA always mentions that they have lots of fund available for mitigation funding, but they say that the states and in turn the districts do not adequately study and come with mitigation plan. They do so. I remember once General Ridge, when he was addressing one of the programs in 2006 or 7, he said that nearly about 18,000 crores at the time was available at the national level, and he said every year almost 90% go unutilized. Something very matter of a concern that why the states aren't knowing this mitigation fund available at the national level and prepare the plan with a bottom-up approach and reach out. Similarly, your response plans are important. How much you're prepared, you're mitigated. There could always be eventuality in the disaster sense. And what way you're going to respond. You need to have your entire range of structures of what your district administration, your civil society, your local corporate business houses, what they can offer, what the civil society agencies can offer, your schools, your colleges, the volunteers who are available locally, all are very important, which we need to have in the plan. standard operating procedures for each kind of a hazard, each kind of hazard turning into a disaster. What are the SOPs? That's something important that you can't go and create during a disaster, but you need to have it well in place. We had an opportunity, myself and Professor Suresh Mariaselvam, to go to Rajasthan to conduct a study in Barmer district, and we looked at various things and then developed state operating standard operating procedures for the Kane Energy, the district administration. The district administration uploaded our study report, and something, it became a good reference point. We were happy about that. And lastly, the mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction into development. I think this is something, an important area we need to work a lot, move on. And it is not just a one-time event, but an entire cycle of how disaster risk reduction have to be ingrained in your entire developmental process, projects, paradigms. That's something very important. If that is ingrained at the way we have kept the environmental impact assessments, for example, for all development projects, I think the DRR has to come in a big way and be part of it. So what kind of a budget and financial allocation you have at the district level is very important. And your monitoring and evaluations in a very participatory way are important. Regular updation is important. DDMP is not a one-time event. But I'm sure, sorry to say this, many a times we had seen, at least a decade before when we were working in the field, that the DDMPs, district disaster management plans, were more of a cut and paste. And you would see that crisscrossing across many districts, many states. I think everything has to be very unique, indigenous, then only it will be very effective, in terms of what are the kind of evaluations, informations. Disaster audits are required, and more importantly then that, you need to have your annual mock drills to test that are be prepared. And this DDMP has to essentially feed into a state disaster management plan, and all the state plans have to collate and become the national disaster management plan. So I think this process we need to, highlight. The disaster management cycle already been highlighted, something very important for us to keep. How do we operationalize district disaster management plan? A model hazard plan, which we had developed earlier. I'm just showing it here. I think the paucity of time, I'll rush in. Warning systems came in place. Some of them were initiated by UNDP, and I remember Mr. Gagandeep Singh Bedi was a collector of Kadalur. This idea was introduced to him, being an electronic engineer. He came forward, appreciated this idea, and that's where the Kadalur model of having the early warning system became a model across the state, and even at the national level we could replicate. But the early warning systems are very important, and community participatory ones are very important. I'll not go to some details which I had about Kanyakumari, which has already been shared by our friend Mr. Suresh Kumar. But I'm importantly highlighting the human development index is something very important, where you interface your development and disasters. Kanyakumari, as we all know, has a high human development index in the entire state of Tamil Nadu. And the literacy level is very high. The male-female ratio is very high. It is also densely populated next to Chennai. Therefore, you need to have a plan accordingly. I talked about the Oki cyclone. There's an entirely separate report available. Some of us would have seen it. I would wish that the district administration needs to look at this report. It is definitely a very critical report, and it was submitted. I think we were all part of it as members of this inquest committee, and the report was submitted with NDMA, spearheaded by the teams in Kanyakumari. I know Mr. Henry from People's Watch, Mr. The local civil society organizations enthusiastically, participated, and they did it. So I think it's, important lessons to learn is that, for coastal vulnerability, particularly deep sea issues, it highlights, the report highlighted that how we heard that, defense minister then coming down and all the, state level officials regularly visiting. But still, when we met the people, there wasn't an answer that why these 680 people went missing. There's no record of them with the district or with the state. And it is somewhere, when it had happened with the Oki cyclone, nearly about after 3 or 4 weeks, we had gone in 2017, December, just before Christmas. Because people were still expecting that by Christmas some of them would return, the people, but they were more and more losing their hopes at the time that so the coordination across even the countries are very important here when people are doing deep sea fishing. Your search, you have the Coast Guard which have a limit, your Navy has a limit, but you need to ensure that we have to go deep beyond and then ensure that we could coordinate in such very massive disasters where people would have been stranded in many islands and many neighboring countries. How do you work your thing? I'm sure there are many systems available under the aegis of SARC, so regional cooperation. Similarly, something called BISTEC is available, where a forum which across South Asia and Southeast Asia, where India is a lead partner in bringing countries up to Thailand, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh are all part of this BIMSTEC coordination. I think we need to bring all that when a local necessity happens. I think Oki cyclone taught us a lesson. That's something very important. I'll not go here. Community involvement and things are very important when we are talking about local one. I think our friend Professor Suresh Mariaselvam had highlighted in detail. I'll just look at it very quickly and conclude within a couple of slides. In terms of community involvement is something important when you're talking about bottom-up approach. Also, community ownership is something very, very important. I think ranging from your hazard mapping, your risk mapping, your capacity mapping, these are all very important when we are talking about community participation. Therefore, the importance of CBDRR was highlighted by the colleague. The local planning, the people are very important. This is something visual from Kadalur. The fisherfolk women, when they were given certain orientation, they would plan. And many of them were claiming to be illiterate, but they would clearly prepare a local plan, what are their issues and how they will overcome all that. And children participation, all very important. School we need to take up when we are doing. I think here, DDMP Act, which is important, and Sunday framework is also very important. One of my articles highlighting the importance of national disaster management law the international disaster law framework into our national law practices. I can share if it's interesting. I'll stop this brief outline of the district disaster management plan importance in tune with the challenges of climate, disaster risk reduction, and mainstreaming disaster risk reduction into various facets of development with the local planning, local participation is something very imminent, very important. I'm sure districts like Kanyakumari, which is always in the lead on many of the human development index, can do a proactive role in developing a plan and making it a model district, as you all are visualizing. I'm sure the very purpose of doing this is to create more awareness and more thing. Wishing that that can happen. It has got an enormous potential to do so. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. Over to the organizers.
Yeah, you can close the screen, Pari. Yeah.
You are not audible, ma'am.
I hope I'm audible now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parivelan. It was a very an informative and comprehensive presentation, and you touched every aspect of disaster management plan. From the experiences you have got from the ground level has added beauty to your presentation. Thank you so much for being with us, and we expect that your guidance will be there with us in all of our future events too. Now, let me invite Dr. Uma Devi, Assistant Professor of Botany, Sri Ayyappa College for Women, to introduce Professor Vinod Menon. Ma'am, please.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening to all the honorable dignitaries who are the part of second session of this webinar series organized by Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Sri Ayyappa College for Women in association with Disaster Management and Rehabilitation Trust, Nagarkoil. On this pleasant and colorful evening of webinar series on Disaster Resilient India 2030, it's my privilege and honor to introduce Professor N. Vinod Chandra Menon. Professor Vinod Chandra Menon is a senior professor and head of social compassion, peace, humanitarian action, and disaster role management, Faculty of Social Innovation, Partnerships and Co-Creation. He is an alumnus of Kerala University and Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has 34 years of working experience in training senior administrators, conducting research studies, and has specialized in disaster management, climate change adaptation, and public policy analysis. Professor Menon has worked in Yashwantrao Chanwan Academy of Development Administration, Pune, as Associate Professor Economic and Planning from 1987 to 1996, and as Professor and Head of the Center for Disaster Management from 1996 to 2002. From 2002 to 2005, he worked in UNICEF India Country Office, New Delhi, in charge of emergency preparedness and response, and coordinated the UNICEF response to the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. In 2005, Professor Menon was nominated by Dr. Manmohan Singh as a founder member in the National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India. He has been a consultant to UNDP, UNESCAP, UNICEF, ADB, World Bank, Economic Intelligence Unit, international and national NGOs, state governments, and has also advised many national and state governments. He is on the advisory boards and governing boards of several organizations. He has been invited to address several international conferences on disaster risk reduction and has been invited to advise several disaster-affected countries. Honorable Vinod sir, you are a great support and guidance helping us to mark this webinar a great success. We are really honored by your presence and support on this occasion in spite of your busy schedule.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Request you to give your concluding remarks, sir, please. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very grateful to the organizers, Ayappa College for Women, and also the Disaster Management Rehabilitation Trust, and Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, and the network of partners who are actually supporting this, to Sri Michael Vedashromani, the principal of the college, and also Dr. Savita and others. Very grateful to all of you. And it was very nice listening to Professor Parivalan and also Professor Suresh Mariaselvam, even though I could only come in towards the middle of Professor Suresh Mariaselvam's presentation. It was very nice listening to him because it almost took me to the tsunami days, both presentations, because 2004, when the tsunami happened, and then the photographs which Professor Suresh Mariaselvam shared of Kadalur and Nagapattinam, and the subsequent photographs also which was shared by Professor Parivalan, showed that last 16 years, have we really moved into operationalizing that paradigm shift which we all dreamed about? 15 years ago, when the National Disaster Management Act was actually passed in 2005, we talked about a paradigm shift. We talked about what Professor Parivalan mentioned, moving from a post-disaster emergency response to a pre-disaster preparedness, and also strengthening emergency response capacities. That was a vision, that disaster risk reduction should be mainstreamed, as what he mentioned as the last point, mainstreaming disaster management in development planning. Unfortunately, this has remained as a dream. We have not really been successful in operationalizing that. What you did in Kanchipuram, so many years ago, and what you did in TNTRC, during that period, and what Professor Suresh Mariaselvam did in the last 15 years, I think, if it was really resilience building by the communities and by the stakeholder groups, government officials, corporate entities, elected representatives, self-help groups, youth groups, women's groups, and local communities, and people, we wouldn't be facing what we are facing right now. If really the paradigm shift had happened, we wouldn't be running around for hospital beds. We wouldn't be running around for blood and plasma. We wouldn't be running around for ventilators. we wouldn't be running around for PPE kits, even though we say that, we are making 1 lakh PPE kits every day. We still find doctors and nurses dying because, they do not have access to PPE kits and N95 masks. Even the frontline workers are not getting it. I got delayed, in coming into this session primarily because of a crisis which has happened in Delhi. There is a shortage of blood and plasma in the plasma banks, and they are requesting for mobilizing blood and plasma as an emergency measure. And we were trying to see that, if civil defense, home guards, Red Cross volunteers, if the disaster response force, we have an ITBP battalion in the NCR. If all these people are there, we should not be facing a situation like what happened in Mumbai, where the serial blast happened. Hospitals ran out short of blood. You remember that? All of us who are in this sector understand what happened, during those days and this is the 90s, okay? And then later, so we felt that at that time, there were not even communication facilities. We had pagers at that time. Many of the people who were there in Maharashtra remember that when the Bombay blast took place, people were sending messages on pagers asking for blood. So the service providers were asked to provide blood at that time. And, then from that period onwards, we have moved to 2020. 21st century, an emerging superpower is actually talking about, running around for essential supplies. This, I think, is something which should make all of us think. And right now, we are having Maharashtra, and I'm sitting in Pune right now, and, we feel that we have to basically make, the duty bearers and, the people who are supposed to be mandated to be saving lives and livelihoods have to be doing their duty. And we find, the legal students, and lawyers trying to look at provisions of law. And very rightly, Professor Parivalan mentioned about, the Disaster Management Act. Professor Suresh Mariaselvam has been basically trying to operationalize the Epidemics Act. But, this is 1897. The Epidemics Act of 1897 amended in 2020. But there are several other acts which are available to us which need to help us to empower people to address grievances. Sri Michael Vedashiromani is there, a very distinguished IAS officer who has actually served in several capacities, including in the National Academy for Administration in Mussoorie, training IAS officers, probationers. Now, and then also in the institution in Sri Perumbadur, training youth, we actually need to understand that, we are going through a crisis of, of an epidemic becoming a pandemic, becoming a humanitarian crisis. And all of us witness that, if we do not even have the numbers of migrant workers, we do not know how many informal, unorganized sector workers are there in our mega cities. We do not know when, when a lockdown is announced, lockdown 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5, unlocking 1, 2, 3, 4. We are now in unlocking 4. And now we are also seeing that in every day you see the explosive rate of growth of, increase in cases, the caseload. We are adding 1 lakh in Maharashtra alone, 1 lakh cases in 5 days. And if you look at the way in which from January 30th, when we had the first case of COVID in Kerala, it took 185 days for 25,000 cases in Kerala. And now it's taking 11 days for 25,000 cases. We have crossed 1 lakh, 100,000 cases in Kerala. But now it is taking 11 days. So you see the way in which, the cases are exploding. And now, you can see what is happening. Tomorrow, the exam is happening, medical exams, right? The NEET. The JEE, the joint entrance exam were done from 1st to 6th of this month. And 6 lakh people took those exams. Tomorrow, 13 lakh people are taking the exams in 3,483 centers in the country. 13 lakh people. And you can imagine what is going to happen when 13 lakh students are taking the exam. They will have to be taken. Their parents will be taking them. They will be coming in public transport. They'll be traveling in, they will be taken. They will be staying in various places in remote cities. They are coming from villages. They're taking the exam. You can imagine what is going to be the surge which is going to happen. You can imagine what's going to be the surge which is going to happen when the schools and colleges start on the 21st of this month, September, when universities begin. Now, I think that, we all need to understand that a humanitarian crisis is something where we need to understand the responsibilities of, every stakeholder. It's a citizen's responsibility. It's a government official's responsibility, elected representatives' responsibility, corporate responsibility, everybody's responsibility. So I think that, we need to understand that this is a problem where, we all need to work together. And, we need to come up with solutions, and, we need to come up with actionable intelligence, data and information. There has to be data integrity. If you really look at the recovery rate and say that the recovery rate is 80%, and, that only the case fatality rate is 3%, we need to understand that the case fatality percentage which we're talking about is an aggregate figure, but it is actually changing when you're disaggregating it to districts. It is changing across districts. The recovery rate is changing across districts now, and the recovery rate is also based on an assumption that a person who is discharged from a hospital without testing has fully recovered. We are discharging people without fully recovered. Now, I think we need to understand that, so when you say confirmed cases, active cases, the active cases are confirmed cases minus so-called recovered cases. And the recovered cases are not really fully recovered cases. They are not tested negative. And I think it is a right for every